Hey there, my name is Oscar. I'm a solo game developer making games under the super corporate sounding name of Godspear Games. I've been working on my first big game, Textbound Tales, for about a year now. I got some good feedback from fans, and I thought I would make a video to show people how I make games like these. My vision for Textbound Tales has always been to make a game like Skyrim, but in text. So it's a text-driven role-playing game where some wacky characters go on even wackier adventures in an open world. To truly give you that D&D party experience, the game supports co-op for up to 4 players, which is especially fun if you hop in a voice call together. I already put a demo on Steam in case you're interested in trying it out. Personally, I really like fantasy RPGs. But what I often don't like is how they offer you a choice that eventually seems to be almost completely unimportant as the game progresses. So I decided to make my own RPG game, where choices would actually matter. Most game developers probably just got the goosebumps because of how bad that idea sounds. If I want to make choices matter, I have to branch the story a million times, which will increase the scope of any game exponentially. Since I realized this before starting, I decided to make the game almost entirely text-driven with some 2D art to support the plot. By doing this, all I have to do to add new content is just open a text document and write some story. So that's why the game ended up being text-driven. Alright, so earlier I gave you the super fabricated corporate pitch, but let me tell you what this game is actually about. It's a classic story of robot meets steampunk crab, drinks too much, and accidentally murders the shopkeeper. Or, if that's not your thing, you could always play as an undead princess who tries to solve combat by singing. Or, if that's also not your thing, you could just play as a penguin who goes fishing? Anyway, the point is, these are all different paths that you can take in Textbound Tales. I want to give every player their own experience by locking and unlocking content based on the decisions they've made and the adventures they've already had. So the first mechanic, I guess, would be the story. There isn't really one big story, there's many little story pieces and quests that all tie into each other in different ways, so that the game world adapts based on the choices you've made. To make this kind of content, I created a system when I started this project that basically just puts scriptable object in scriptable object in scriptable object and so on. The first scriptable object is a prompt, which holds a collection of options, which are also scriptable objects, and these, in turn, hold a collection of outcome scriptable objects. Or at least, that's how it started. The underlying system of the game is still the same, but I quickly realized that making content this way was a massive hassle, so I decided to sacrifice my sanity and 2 weeks of my life to create a nice visual editor based on Unity shader graph with which I could make scenarios way quicker. Afterwards, I expanded on this code to implement stuff like shops, conditions, rewards, and combat. They all have their own nodes, which makes it easy for me to, for instance, just add a combat node to a scenario and start the combat sequence. Combat works in a similar way to the rest of the game as it is all story-driven. You'll get a random prompt of what your enemy is doing and you can choose how to react from a list of options. I quickly realized that by using these nodes and conditions in a creative way, I could create all sorts of complex scenarios that allowed players to play minigames or modify the scenes through their choices. As a consequence, I added in mechanics such as resource gathering, like this fishing minigame I mentioned earlier, a crafting mechanic, and I also added a player housing mechanic where players can use the objects or money that they found to decorate their own house. To further give players the idea that their character is really their character, I implemented a mechanic that allows characters to unlock traits which will change their character visually. The traits will also unlock different paths for the players throughout the game. Since I do almost everything myself, except for the music, shout out to Pianist Centaur for making some great fantasy tunes, I have to pick my battles a bit carefully and be smart about how I approach problems. The whole text-driven mechanic is mainly there so I can create tons of content in a reasonably small amount of time. I've also found that by using certain assets from the asset store, I've been able to speed up development in my personal weak areas a lot. One good example is the text animator I'm using. I didn't make this myself, I actually just got the Febucci text animator from the asset store. I'll put the link in the description if you're interested. For the art, I first worked on defining a good art style for the game. I took some inspiration from games like Castle Crashers and Hollow Knight, since I love their art, and I ended up with something just like that. To do this, I really just looked at the way they drew light and shadows in their art and the way they did the outlines for their scenes and characters. I wouldn't say I'm a great artist, I'm more of a programmer, but I'm fairly happy with the result. Wow! You made it all this way! This is the point in the video where I tell you that you can already try the game. Recently, I put together a first demo with a little prologue and actually put it up on the Steam page with some work in progress trailer that I made. So if you want to go check that out, feel free to do that. I will put the link in the description. I'll be updating the demo every couple weeks with new scenarios and other little things, so let me know what you think. If you made it all this way, I want to seriously thank you for watching my video. I will make more devlogs in the future as the development progresses. If you want to stay up to date, make sure to hit subscribe, and I think there's a bell you have to hit too, but don't quote me on that. Or you could just join the Discord, I post there about every little thing that I do.